Thank you. And speakers are limited to 2 minutes tonight. We will, oh, thank you, Jose. Will you please call roll to determine whether or not we have a quorum for the record?
Yes, and I just also promoted Director Frericks, so he'll be joining here in just a moment.
There he is.
Great. So calling the roll, City of Davis.
I am here.
Wonderful. City of West Sacramento.
Here.
City of Winters.
Here.
And City of Woodland. Let me double check the attendees. I'm not seeing a representative from City of Woodland at this time. County of Yolo.
Here.
We'll note Tom's presence when he enters into the meeting and the time. The next item to consider is approval of the agenda. If there are no changes in tonight's agenda, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Ledesma moves.
Second by Frericks.
All right, moved by Ledesma, seconded by Frericks. We will have a roll call vote for the record.
City of Davis.
Aye.
City of West Sacramento.
Aye.
City of Winters.
Aye.
City of Woodland. No vote, not present. And County of Yolo.
Aye.
Awesome. Motion passes, or the agenda passes. At this time in the meeting, the Yolo County Transportation District accepts comments from the public on items that are not on the agenda. As the agenda indicates, state law limits our ability to respond to comments. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak on the public comment period for items not on the agenda?
We do, Madam Chair. Prior to making those requests, I would like to inform the public and attendees that we did receive public comments via written email which were forwarded to the board, on which will be made part of the record for this meeting. And with that, we have a request for public comment from Mr. Mike Barnbaum and Alan Hirsch, Madam Chair. Oh, yeah, you're muted, Madam Chair.
Sorry about that. Mike Barnbaum, please proceed. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening, Chair Lauren, members of the board, Acting Executive Director Perez, and staff. This is Mike Barnbaum. Prior to this meeting, I attended the Sacramento Regional Transit District Board meeting today on the Regional Transit's YouTube channel. Just some major things to let your board know about. I had made public comment in the meeting and read by Clerk Cindy Brooks that the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority will hold an April board meeting. It'll be at 10 a.m. on April 21st. That is, as you know, chaired by the Honorable Don Saylor of Yolo County. Among the major items to be considered at that board meeting will be adoption of the 2-year revised business plan. And I will be chiming in at that meeting relating to a project adjacent to the Oakland Jack London Square Station. So stay tuned for that if you zoom in on that on April 21st at 10 a.m. The board today at RT adopted a conditional annexation to annex the city of Elk Grove into the Regional Transit District. The full annexation is subject to vote by the Elk Grove City Council Wednesday at 6 p.m. and that meeting is on Zoom. The last thing that they discussed, and it was brought up by board member Katie Valenzuela, when can we all go back in person and have regional transit board meetings in person? So the board had a little bit of discussion about that, and it looks like that the next meeting on April 26th, which will still be virtual, will have an agenda item discussing when they can go back in person again. So follow that and stay tuned.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Alan Hirsch.
And Madam Chair, we did have another request from Mr. Alan Hirsch. I apologize if my alarm spoke over you.
No, but I wanted to note that Mr. Tom Stollard of Woodland is here. Mayor Stollard, for the record.
Thank you. I noted his entrance at 7:05 p.m. for the
I
record.
want you to know that I've been trying since 5 minutes to 7. The assumed code number on my calendar was different from the one on the agenda, so I was having trouble getting in. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Alan, are you there? Do you wish to speak?
Yeah, I've unmuted Mr.
Hi,
Hirsch.
thank you very much. Last meeting, the board affirmed becoming a lead agency, a co-lead agency on the I-80 corridor study. I'm quite concerned again that this will be turned into a freeway widening and add capacity for more people to drive single car or double car and increase our carbon footprint. If we are serious that this is a crisis, this cannot be a freeway widening that adds capacity. It cannot be. I want to emphasize that again, and I am disappointed the board passed the resolution without acknowledging that's an imperative. Otherwise, we are in denial, and all these resolutions about climate crisis are basically nothing but some paper. Please commit to this. Has to be a transit-focused development. It can't encourage more driving alone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hirsch. Are there any other public comments?
No other requests for comment at this time.
All right, the next item to consider is approval of the consent calendar. I have comments on the consent calendar item 4B, so I would like to move that to the regular calendar, the first item. So if there aren't any other changes, I would entertain a motion for items 4A and 4C.
Saylor moves approval of 4A and 4C.
Second by Frericks.
Thank you. We have a motion, a first and a second. All in favor, roll call vote.
City of Davis,
Yes, aye. Sorry.
City of West Sacramento,
Aye.
City of Winters,
Aye.
City of Woodland,
Aye.
County of Yolo.
Aye.
Motion passes. The item that I moved is the adoption of appreciation, resolution 2021-4 for Terry Bassett. And I will do I'd like to do the comments first and then pass the motion. I wanted to just bring up the content that in the resolution. Whereas for more than 39 years, Terry Bassett has overseen transportation, fixed route, bus and paratransit services that have collectively provided nearly 42 million rides in Yolo County. And whereas Terry Bassett has been associated with Yolo Bus since its founding in January 1982 and was instrumental in forming the Joint Powers Agency among the 4 cities of the county of Yolo, forming the Yolo County Transit Authority, which later became YCTD. Whereas Terry has secured tens of millions of dollars over the years to replace, expand, and rehabilitate buses and built up nearly 26 million in capital assets for the organization. And whereas through Terry's leadership, Yolo Bus has been on the leading edge of many accomplishments. Whereas Terry has served as a valuable partner developing the Causeway Connection, a dedicated fleet of 12 battery electric buses offering 0 emissions, publicly available, direct express bus service between the UC Davis campus and the UC Davis Medical Center in Sacramento. And whereas Terry's a problem solver and committed to serving the community, from securing funds for the community, requesting covered bus stops and providing transportation for food delivery to the homebound residents during the COVID-19 pandemic. Let it be resolved by the Board of Directors and Yolo County Transportation District that the Yolo County Transportation District Board of Directors adopts Resolution R 2021-04, recognizes, commends, and thanks Terry Bassett for his many years of dedicated service to the Yolo County Transportation District, and we wish him a long, healthy, and happy future. 39 years is a long time to serve a community, and I just wanted to, I thought it was worth stopping for a minute, even though we have a short agenda, to just say thank you.
Jesse, I want to join you in that. I think
Thank you.
it's fully appropriate that we do this, I want you to know that last Tuesday, the Woodland City Council adopted a resolution similarly and invited Terry to join us virtually, and we presented it to him virtually. I took it over to him the next day because we declared April 7th Terry Bassett Day in the city of Woodland. So it was nice coverage was provided in the Woodland Democrat and the Sunday paper.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Stoller.
Well, we can't do enough really to recognize his contributions.
Well, thank you. If there aren't any other comments at this time, I would
Madam Chair.
go
I'll
ahead.
make the motion.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to, don't want to get in the way of Mr. Stallard's motion, but just would say, I've been fortunate to serve on this board for nearly a decade at this point, and been fortunate enough to work with Terry in that entire time, and having served twice as chair during that period as well. And I really, and also obviously served on a number of other boards in the region, as we all do, especially transportation related boards, where we have come to rely on Terry's expertise and his reputation as a transit leader in the state of California. So I just want to also just recognize this moment and express my sincere appreciation for his decades of exemplary service to the Yolo County Transportation District and to sort of transit users throughout the state of California, because the work that he has done here in Yolo he has done a lot of work with the California Transit Association, as well as at SACOG and other places. So he definitely has a much larger presence felt outside of Yolo County as well, throughout his decades of service to all of us. So appreciate the opportunity to just make a few quick comments. Thank you.
I'm not ready for a motion yet. Do we have public comment on the item unless the other directors wish to speak?
Chair Lauren, this is Matt Dulcich.
Right.
If it's appropriate, I would like to speak.
Please.
Yes, thank you. And yeah, I think from the UC Davis perspective, Terry's 39 years of service really leave a legacy of transit for our communities. And two of the projects I would point to that are really part of that from the UC Davis perspective. One is a route that we're all so familiar with, or I believe it's the 42. And many generations of UC Davis students have used the 42 to get to the Sacramento airport. And on any holiday, whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas, you'll frequently see the 42 filled with students kind of getting out of town, getting to the airport, and then returning. And I think part of Terry's legacy is that route and the success of that route. And I think really his vision of seeing that critical need and then creating that route is part of his legacy and is one of his achievements. The other is the Causeway Connection, and that's more recent and was a project I was very happy to get to work with Terry on, and with Jose's help and many other partners that has now come to fruition. So again, Terry's legacy of many, many years of public service are greatly appreciated by UC Davis, and the UC Davis community has been well served by Terry's service. So a thank you to Terry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dulcich. If there aren't any other comments by the directors.
I have a hand raised, if I could.
Sorry.
This is Don. So one of the things that's so interesting about Yolo County is that we're just the right size. So we're not too big, we're not too small. And Terry was a perfect fit for Yolo Bus, for the Yolo County Transportation District through his time with us, because he knew that running a transit system in Yolo County is not just about the routes and the minutes and it's about the people. And that was one of Terry's strong suits, was understanding that and responding to people when they had issues that needed attention. So I guess all of us just are grateful for Terry's efforts and his commitment to the organization and to serving the people of Yolo County.
Thank you, Mr. Saylor. Mr. Ledesma?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone. So thank you for bringing this forward today. And on behalf of City of West Sacramento, just thank you to Terry and all his 39 plus years of service. Public service, as we all know, and our city staff know, and West Sacramento and all of yours, public service is a privilege and an honor, but it's also can be thankless at times, and it can be just a lot of work to help provide a good service to people that maybe not everybody gets to use or see. And Terry, for the time that I've served on this board, has always cared most about making sure the buses show up on time for those who may need it and who count on it. And I never ever thought for a minute Terry's dedication to that lone purpose, to making sure the transit service, the bus service, ran and provided the service it needed, is something that I'll always value in Terry. And he has been and a terrific person to get to know. And I just really we want to thank him for his years of dedication to Yolo County and to West Sacramento. He helped us do quite a few things in the past time that I've been on here, including the development of the shuttle, downtown shuttle, the Y shuttle started. He also brought some innovation to our community through when TransDev did an autonomous vehicle demonstration in front of Rayleigh Field, then Rayleigh Field. It really showed a dedication to us moving forward, and just want to thank Terry for all the work he's done over the past 39 years. So wish him well, and well deserved. We know that about him as well. He's a very good family man, and hope he has his retirement time to spend with his family. So all the best wishes.
Thank you, Director Ledesma. Is there any public comment on this item?
There's a hand raised for this comment, for this item, James Drake, Madam Chair.
The chair recognizes James Drake.
And there we go.
Hi, good evening. My name's James Drake. I'm a planner with Sacramento Regional Transit, but speaking just here personally. I've been with Sacramento RT since 2006, but today I learned that Terry's been with Yola Bus a little longer than I've been alive, which is pretty impressive, pretty incredible. A couple qualities really come to mind. One of my fondest memories is probably being involved in the procurement for the YOLO Go project, where I had the honor of being on the selection committee with a few others. And the quality of the discussions with the group that Terry assembled there, including his own team and other transit people from around the area, it was just very apparent, what a good team he had around him and he cultivated. Two qualities that come to mind are attention to detail and tirelessness. Working especially on that Causeway connection, I always knew if anyone was going to look over every line in our spreadsheets with the time point on every trip, the revenue hour calculations and the totals, and make sure they all match up, I knew Terry was going to do it, and he was going to work over the weekend on it. And I think setting a good example is one of the best things one can do. I think that one of the best tributes is the fine team he has cultivated. So I think Terry is deserving of congratulations, and I applaud you guys for the great relationship you've had with Terry as your executive director.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. Are there any other public comments?
No additional requests at this time, Madam Chair. Although I don't know if you wanted to mention the California Legislative Assembly.
I was going to mention it in the next item, but I just wanted to add one thing. This is my first time as chair of transportation, and it's been, through COVID. And Terry right away during COVID was very flexible and innovative. When we found out that YOLO Food Bank needed to have a larger footprint to get food to so many more needy people in our area, Terry had great ideas of, well, let's use our buses. We can't have riders on there, but we can get food on there. And he was willing to loan drivers to YOLO Food Bank to just come up with different solutions to solve the problems. And I just really appreciated his his creativity under fire, which not everybody can have, not everybody does, but he executed great creative solutions under enormous pressure. So with that, we have a first, and I still need a second for the motion.
Second by Ferks.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Go ahead and have a roll call vote for this item.
City of Davis
Aye.
and City of West Sacramento,
Aye.
City of Winters,
Aye.
City of Woodland,
Aye.
and County of Yolo.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Our next item of regular calendar is board member reports, announcements, other nominations, and presentations. Do the directors wish to share anything from their districts, from their areas? I have one item. I was fortunate enough to participate with Assemblymember Cecilia Aguiar Curry and Senator Bill Dodd in getting information to them about Terry. And they have made a really beautiful resolution, and it's there at YCTD. It's pretty big. I know you can't read it, but it's beautifully framed, and it'll just be a nice gift to Terry when he decides to come by YCTD, or we'll just keep it on his behalf. No, I'm just kidding. We'll give it to him. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move to item 6, the financial status update by Ms. Bryan.
Good evening, Chair Loren, members of the board. This is going to be a very brief update. The only update I really have this month is fair revenues. I updated fair revenues to show you through February. You can see that, this one. We had an actual of 581,000 in fixed route fares and 45.5 in paratransit fares. So those are projected fares then through 6/30 look like they're tracking about 22,000 unfavorable variance. So that includes the budget amendment. It's just a little bit down. We're hoping that we'll see it come up with some increase in ridership over the next months. But there really hasn't been any other changes over this month. Just we're still working. This month I'll be working on our third quarter billings for FTA and CARES Act funds, all those. So next month you'll see financial statements and more information as far as some of these other funding sources. Also, the only other thing that I would request is if you have any direction on what you would like to see, continue to see during this time, financial status each month. If there's other information that would be helpful to you, please let me know.
Thank you. Thank you for your report. Do the directors have comments or questions on this item?
Chair Lauren,
Yes.
I have a question about the CARES Act usage.
Yeah.
And just a reminder, Janice, on the
Yes.
Is there a time limit by which these funds need to be committed or expended?
Okay, so the CARES Act funds have no sunset date. The CRISA funds have the CRISA funds sunset in 2025. So we have to have them obligated by 2023 and spent by 2025.
Okay. For the CARES funds, there's a balance remaining of 5.4 million. Is there an expenditure plan?
What I have and what you'll see when we introduce the budget next month, we're working on that right now. We'll show what we're planning on using that for. I want to get all the funds together. We still don't know. We don't have anything from on funding from the American Rescue Plan. That was just strictly a guesstimates based on prior funding. So once SACOG recommends funding and we see what we're getting, I want to put all that together. I'm hoping we're going to see that this month, but we're going to put at least the CRRSA funds together with the remainder of the CARES Act funds and show that in how we anticipate expending that in the budget document or in our budget preparations. And you'll see that when we introduce the budget next month.
Okay, thank you. And I do, since we are going to have the budget introduced next month and adopted, I guess, in June.
Right.
I think that's probably where your focus would be best spent. And
right.
And then after that, we can probably deal with monthly updates. But I think your plate's pretty full for the next 2 months.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Saylor. I just wanted to comment that since your background is the Causeway Connection and the yellow hand comes up when you raise your hand, I can't see it in the thumbnail size. So sorry if I didn't recognize you. I really didn't see it.
Just assume it's always up.
I'll just assume as long as you're, yes, I will. All right. Any other comments or requests or direction from the board? Thank you. And I do concur that our looking at those CARES Act dollars in the future is the most important thing we could do right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess we can take public comment on the item.
There are no requests for comment at this time.
All right, we'll move on to item number 7. Item number 7 is to consider and adopt final comprehensive operational analysis of YOLO Go. Thank you, Mr. Perez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm very pleased and excited to bring this item to your for your consideration tonight. We are again at the end of the beginning, and YOLO Go has been a multi-year project, not intentionally, but that's the way it went. And everybody came together under very challenging times to make sure that we brought forth for your consideration a quality product, a comprehensive study, an assessment and strategic kind of blueprint for the future of YOLO Bus and YCTD as a district. So the attachment of the final YOLO Go study was attached to this packet as a separate due to file size. But it is, again, the culmination of multiple years of effort aimed at developing a strategic blueprint. In 2020, in early 2020, a then final draft was presented for the board's consideration and comment. We were beginning then a final outreach phase, and then we were all forced to take action under the COVID-19 pandemic. In that current and still operating environment, we asked our consultants team of Dan Boyle and Associates to look at the previously developed recommendations and strategies and see if they would hold up under the anticipated, to the best of our abilities, anticipated future demand and changes and challenges to what we can expect because of COVID and what would work best for our district. Further, we also had the ability to incorporate the recently adopted vision, values, and priorities from our board workshop that was adopted in early 2020. And we're able to incorporate assessment of each of the service recommendations into those, I'm going to call them VVPs for short, to make sure that we are ensuring that we meet our district's vision and values and priorities. So just a little bit of background, a summary of the service recommendations have been discussed previously by this board. They've been made available since March 22nd to the public in their final form for comments. I've attached to this staff report a summary of those comments received, and the board has been forwarded additional comments that were received for tonight's meeting for their consideration, which will be entered into the record as well. But very briefly, one of the top recommendations and priorities for our district moving forward per this study is to increase the frequency on the Route 42 A and B to 30-minute frequencies during peak periods. We wish to permanently reallocate some of the services and some of the resources from express service and trips due to reduced demand due to COVID-19, and put those resources where they may be better utilized or allocated. To modify the Woodland local fixed route structure and introduce a microtransit option in the city of Woodland. To combine some of the local West Sacramento routes, 35 and 39, and to continue microtransit service for the Winters and El Rio Via housing, as supplemented by the Route 220 commute service as a fixed route, and to continue that microtransit service as well in the Knights Landing area. And almost as important, to establish at the very least a preliminary set of what we're calling trigger metrics or goals for consideration of reintroducing or further reducing, expanding, or modifying express trips based on demand and performance. I wish to stress to the members of the board and the members of the public that these are service recommendations and strategies, and they are not aimed at being published schedules or finely tuned service modifications and changes. All of the permanent changes that we make, including expansion of the 42, modifying of fixed routes in any of the communities, will be accompanied by requisite public hearings and opportunities for additional refinement and outreach. We, in our budgeting process for the upcoming year, will use our estimates estimated anticipated levels of demand for revenue hours and revenue miles based on the recommendations and any direction we receive tonight from our board. But again, they are not, for lack of a better phrase, written in stone. This is aimed at not being something where we are flip-flopping and changing services willy-nilly, but it is something that we want to stress that there is opportunity for further improvement, enhancement, modification down the road if we realize that some of the circumstances or assumptions made that were used to develop these recommendations either no longer apply or were significantly changed. We can move with that and introduce additional services or more innovative technologies and services. Our primary intent, as was stated earlier in this meeting, is to make sure that we're meeting the mobility needs of our community. And staff strongly feels that this series of recommendations is going to do a lot to get us toward meeting that goal, that vision for our district. So it also attached to the staff report, as I mentioned, are a summary of the public comments that we received regarding specific to YOLO Go. We wanted to make sure that they were addressed within the staff report. But with that, I really wish to emphasize the discussion tonight from the board and allow you an opportunity to provide additional feedback or consideration or direction to staff so that we can make sure that we are achieving the needs of the district, our communities, and meeting our visions, values, and priorities. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Acting Director Perez. Does the board have questions or comments at this time, or we can go to public comment? Do we have public comment?
We do have requests for public comment, Madam Chair. We have one from Mike Barnbaum and a second from Joe Bolte.
All right. The chair recognizes Mike Barnbaum.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to comment on the YOLO Go item. We've worked at this very hard and very long, and I want to recognize the work behind this of Executive Director Emeritus Terry Bassett. Without his leadership, I don't think we would be where we are today. And I would ask the board in the motion to adopt this item to adopt a motion, honorary motion, recognizing Terry and the work behind this. I would call this Terry's item for this evening. I want to comment just on the 42. Thank you for putting that recommendation in the final of the 6. It does meet the vision, values, and priorities. While you mentioned that there is no set things about it per se with schedules, I just like to comment if we can perhaps put a definition to what peak periods would mean. And I throw out there, as I've said before, 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. In those windows. And hoping that when we have to come back for public hearing, especially on the 42A and B, that it be one of the first ones we do, considering that schools are coming back in person, Sac State, UC Davis, etc. And the hope would be to, Jose, maybe if we could have a hearing on this shortly and an implementation in early August, that would particularly help both Sac State and UC Davis with a new schedule after final route implementation. So thank you, everybody, for your hard work. And I encourage you to approve this in honorary of Terry Bassett. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnbaum. The chair recognizes Joe Bolte.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Good evening, Yola Bus. This is Joe Bolte, live in Davis. I want to echo all the kind words that were said about Director Bassett's service. I only knew him for a little bit more than a year, but I was really impressed with his ability to listen and manage all these competing demands and requests for what our mass transit system should do. So we're very grateful to him, and I just want to say that. I also want to say congrats to Yola Bus board and staff on getting the grant request from SACOG for 30-minute all-day service on the 42. I think that's going to be tremendous in getting Yola Bus ready for the future and the post-pandemic world, and really making it a mobility service that people will be really excited to take. And I think tonight it's time to approve the YOLO Go comprehensive draft. This plan has been through a lot of review from board members, staff members, outside experts, members of the public. In my experience, people seem to get it. People seem to like it. I think this is the plan for the future. I think it's the right way to go. So I urge the board to approve it tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bolte. I appreciate your comments. Are there any other public comments waiting?
We do not have any other requests at this time.
All right. We've looked at this many times, many iterations, and if there aren't any further comments from the board, I would entertain a motion on this item.
Madam Chair, I think I was the chair when we initiated this. I can't remember, but it was thanks to all the staff for pulling this together, and to the communities who came together and provided the comment. So with that, I'll make the motion to adopt the comprehensive operational plan, or YOLO Go.
Taylor seconds.
Thank you. We have a roll call vote on the item.
Yes. City of Davis.
And I just want to very quickly say, since we didn't have much of a chance for comments, just that really appreciate all of the hard work, especially both by our consultant Dan Boyle and team, but also by staff on this. It's been quite an effort over the past couple of years to get us to this point, and no one expected a worldwide pandemic to sort of plunk itself down on top of in the midst of it. So thank you for all your efforts, YCTD staff. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lucas.
And City of West Sacramento.
Aye.
City of Winters.
Aye.
City of Woodland.
Aye.
And County of Yolo.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. And yes, Director Frericks, I share your thoughts on this very accurately. And I know Dan Boyle is in the waiting room or in the other room. I just want to thank him for sticking with this through the pandemic. Thank you. All right. Moving to item 8, Your Ride Microtransit Performance. Kristen Mazur.
Yes. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Good evening, Chair Loren and members of the board. As the board already knows, but some of the members of the public may not, YCTD is currently operating 2 microtransit pilot projects. One is in Knights Landing area and one is in Winters, and they connect those more rural communities to the urban neighboring communities. We've branded our microtransit service here at YCTD as Your Ride. Last month, we brought you some preliminary data to just help the board members see how those services are performing. Because that item was deferred to this month, we have again attached that preliminary data that we brought to you last month. So you're welcome to ask questions about that if you have any. There are some tables on pages 47 to 49 of the packet, and then some maps on pages 50 to 54 that show the origins and destinations of where people have been traveling on the Your Ride service. But the primary reason that we're bringing this item to you tonight, and the same reason we brought it to the Technical Advisory Committee and the Citizens Advisory Committee earlier, just last week actually, in April, is because we want to know what a successful microtransit service looks like to you. So as you know, with your action that you just took, adopting YOLO Go, our intent is to continue operating microtransit service in Winters and Knights Landing, and then to further expand it by adding some service in Woodland to replace some of the fixed routes service there. So as we're continuing to operate this service, and it's a new service, we want to know what data should we be collecting, and what metrics should we be monitoring to really make sure that it's as successful as we want it to be. I think sometimes there's a misconception that demand response services are easier to plan for than fixed route services, but they can actually be quite complex, and we want to just make sure that when we put it out there, we're giving it its best chance at success, and that we're monitoring it to make sure it's meeting our goals. So with the help of the CAC and the TAC, who both provided really excellent input at their meetings, we've come up a list of preliminary goals of what we think we might want microtransit to do for our communities. And then we have a list of data that we would be collecting in order to monitor that we're meeting those goals. In addition to just being a good practice to know what your goal is and to monitor data to make sure you're meeting your goals, we are also going to be going out to bid for another software package not for a microtransit provider. We'll continue to use TransDev to actually provide the service, but we're going to maybe go out to bid and see what's in the market in terms of software tools. So when we do that, we want to know what data we should be collecting, and we want to try to get software tools, if they're able to, give us that data. So with that, I won't talk too much. I'll let you guys do most of the talking, and let us know if you have any thoughts on any of these topics.
Thank you, Kristen, for your presentation. And I'm sorry that it got postponed from last month, but I'm really glad that you had the extra time to just add more information. Do the directors have comments or questions? The chair recognizes Mr. Stollard.
A simple question, Madam Chair. El Rio Villa, is that the migrant housing near Winters?
Yes, it's no longer migrant housing, although that's the legacy that we call it. Yes, Rio Villa.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
The chair recognizes Mr. Frericks.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. Kristen, thank you very much for this work. I appreciate that. And I'm happy that we were able to just sort of have it delayed a little bit so we could have a little bit more deliberative discussion about this and presentation and such. Curious about, it's mentioned in the staff report, and you mentioned it in sort of verbally about the input from the CAC. It's not, it says sort of just the charts in here are sort of a collaboration and input from CAC, but I was curious more about that discussion, how that went, and what sort of items were offered up by either members of the public or the CAC as part of those discussions. Thank you.
Yeah, I think both the CAC and the TAC, I would say it was interesting that they both were reminding us that as staff that this may not be just an economic evaluation exercise. So when we put out microtransit service, the goal is to really maybe help people that aren't currently being well served by fixed route transit. So instead of just evaluating, the things we would normally look at for fixed route, like cost per ride or riders per hour, we really want to get at some other things. For instance, the CAC pointed out their desire to serve disadvantaged communities with the service. And so we want to make sure that the software provider provides very specific origin and destination data rather than just like very general heat maps where we don't know if we're serving the DACs or not. We also had some great feedback. One of the CAC members has tried to use Your Ride service. So he really emphasized the need for certainty for the riders, and how fixed route, even if it's infrequent, at least you know when the bus is coming, even if it's just every 3 hours or even just every other day. Whereas with microtransit, like it would be helpful if there was a little bit more of that element of certainty, so that you're not just calling when you need to travel and finding out that there's a wait that's untenable. So, and then the TAC was great, again, at emphasizing that, that this is different than fixed route, and that we should be looking at, maybe even if it costs more per trip, to help to give people a ride if we're really serving a lot of people in a disadvantaged community that wasn't well served by fixed route, then maybe it's worth spending a few more dollars per ride on that service. And then finally, I'd just say a lot of good reminders that we should be asking people about their satisfaction with the service. Like, hopefully we can get ratings on how well they felt the service served them. Because when we look at a wait time, it'll be hard for us to know, was 30 minutes an okay wait time? Was 60 minutes or 15 minutes okay? If we also collect their satisfaction with the wait time and their satisfaction with the cost, we'll be able to better sense whether people are happy with the service.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful. One other quick question, just with regard to, the sort of the Your Ride, the initial pilot program obviously was part of the Civic Lab, sort of awardee at SACOG, and so curious. I assume that the TAC, there's probably folks from SACOG or that are maybe a part of TAC, or perhaps not, and that's fine. But just curious, there were obviously reporting requirements with regard to sort of that original pilot program in Knights Landing, and so I was curious if there are, if we're utilizing sort of some of those same types of sort of draft goals or performance measures that we used for the original Your Ride sort of pilot program in Knights Landing to be utilized as we sort of continue to do expansion of microtransit in other communities around Yolo County.
Yeah, and I can help a little bit with that background, Director Fredericks. So when the application was, or the project was developed, I'll take the blame for being maybe a little too strict on the objective or quantifiable data. I tried my best to be as data driven as possible, but as our CAC and TAC reminded me, and Kristen, we do need to have occasionally different metrics for success. And you're absolutely right. That original grant application did have some reporting requirements. And I think the greatest takeaway that we have from the conversations we had with the public and our citizens committee and technical committee is that it needs to be a combination, that there isn't a single metric or quantifiable or not that is going to determine the success. And that's really what we are helping. We've already got some good feedback about how, as Kristen put together in her spreadsheet here of potential goals and data that we would want to collect. But we want to further refine that and make sure that we're meeting the needs of our board and the district, as well as the customers. And I think those kind of top things that were suggested, including the customer satisfaction or surveying, is going to be important, as well as combining all different kinds of data and data sources and feedback from our customers and from our board to make sure that we're doing the best that we can.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate that response, and again, just thank you both, but Kristen specifically for just the work on this item. I think it's exciting to see the possibility of additional sort of opportunities for microtransit, and other sort of applications around the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Fredericks. The chair recognizes Mr. Ledesma.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and similarly, Kristen, thank you for your work, and appreciate the slight delay in getting this back to us so we can give you the appropriate comment. And first of all, really good work on seeking feedback from the committees you went to, and I think they had the right notion about it. Was it certainly is not going to be exactly, or shouldn't be exactly like the fixed route service we're used to measuring and monitoring. I think that's one of the key learnings or key assumptions you could probably start with. And what is this going to do? And I think the learning opportunity we have, hopefully provide some service. So you really got to have some metrics on kind of the number of riders, obviously, but getting to the notion of who is riding from where to where is really important beyond a heat map. And I think it is important that one of our values is about equity. And one of the key learnings we've had with the micro transit program we have is around that is while we wanted some performance metrics into it, we also wanted to learn who would ride it, where would it come from, and then see if it was providing value. The one thing we didn't count on, or at least we wanted, but it was surprising the amount of ridership we did get from some of our older neighborhoods and areas where transit was hard to reach, and traditional transit and fixed routes. And I think that's where maybe there's some opportunity to kind of get that data and see if our service through YCTD, the microservice can accomplish some of those same things. So I think this is really a really good start on sort of where you can go. But I would also maybe urge a little bit of try not to box it in on what we want it to be by the performance metrics we put out, because we're just not used to this. But I think getting rider feedback, I think you have it in here around happy customers. That's another quotient we weren't sure on, but there was a happy customer quotient that came with VIA that we saw people, the increased mobility of elderly folks and younger folks who not only got to go to places they hadn't gone before, but enjoyed the ride as well because of the nature of the vehicle itself. So again, those are things we just didn't see, that things we didn't anticipate, but it's created a kind of a different level of service. So again, this is a really great service. I'm glad we started, and again, I think getting that data and kind of seeing where it goes, maybe there is opportunity that we can find ways to expand it into other ways that we weren't thinking about when we started it. So anyway, just thank you for all the work. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Director Ledesma, for your very thoughtful and thorough comments. The chair recognizes Director Stallard.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and appreciate the presentation. I certainly appreciate Director Ledesma's comments. I am looking at that cost per ride slide, and it shows that currently the Your Ride average is pretty high. It might be interesting to see an average line, because it seems like it might be trending a bit downward over time. I can't really tell the way the lines move up and down, but are we seeing any increase in ridership over time, or is it still suffering from the COVID factor?
I think it's still suffering. I'll let Jose answer that. Yeah, it's hard to judge. I feel bad for microtransit that we're judging it based on COVID ridership, whereas we're comparing it to pre-COVID fixed route. So.
Right, and I think the briefest answer is that it is still impacted by COVID. We anticipate that it will continue to be impacted by COVID for the near future, but we were reminded by the conversations with our citizens committee and our technical committees that we can't judge it. We don't have all of the tools or the right environments to judge it apples to apples. We did our best with the fixed route, but we were very cognizant of the fact that it's not a fair comparison. And that evolved the conversation to making sure that we are considering following the board's direction and our public's direction about some of those qualitative metrics that are, hey, I'm able to get to my grocery store now, whereas before I couldn't. And how do we put a dollar to that value when we're increasing the mobility and increasing access? So those are the kinds of things that we want to make sure that we are doing our best to use to evaluate it, and not just putting it in straight hard numbers or trend lines. That's all valuable information, and I don't say we should ignore it, but I also am not of the position where it should be even the primary factor in terms of determining whether or not our Your Ride is a success.
What I don't quite understand from looking at this is you've got this straight across line for both the fixed routes, and then the jumping up and down line for the Your Ride service. And the fixed route isn't operating with the same number of people every hour of every day. So, but you're saying you average all the riders over an extended period of time, you've created an average line, it looks like to me, but I don't see an average line for the Your Ride cost. So just as a suggestion, that might have been helpful as a little, another way to complicate this chart. Anyway, I agree with my colleagues.
Future, though. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of investment's been put into this experiment. I certainly support it. Serving rural residents is a challenge, and but it's an important opportunity and an obligation of this district. So I hope we will ride this out for a while longer and hopefully see numbers that are more manageable in terms of a per ride cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Stallard. I had a few comments. First, I wanted to comment that I did speak to some of the members of the CAC, and they did try to make sense of the chart of comparing the fixed route with the microtransit, and it was very hard for them also to translate. And plus, it was very hard for them to look at the numbers during a pandemic and comparing them to a pre-pandemic world. Those are very different kind of universes, if you will. So as we come out of the pandemic, there's a great opportunity for this to increase, but my comments are mainly going to be focused on satisfaction. I think the line of data to be collected, satisfaction, unique riders, and what kind of satisfaction, I think is really important. And I think the riders that might be from the underserved community aren't always used to somebody asking them for their satisfaction. And I think it's a really good relationship tool to say, how are we serving you? And I think that is a great attribute that we can have. I'd also like to see if we can have some software, whether it's the software adoption that Kristen Mazur is looking for, whether it's our updated website. But I'd love the ability for us to be able to have like a happy face, satisfaction right away when you have your ride. Was it great? Great. And then some way that we could collect that data. I mean, you could fine tune it to why was it great? But I think initially just finding out satisfaction is a great start. And then my other comment was two things. One was how we can measure the riders once we have the riders, but I'm not sure how well we're communicating to communities that we have the service. I think we still need more robust outreach on letting people know. I know in winters, I've said to people, the microtransit will pick you up for you to get your COVID shot. We're doing free rides for COVID. And, oh, I didn't know about that. I never heard of that. There's a lot of people just, maybe they're not reading the paper, and they're also not on Facebook. They read things on the phone. So it's really important that when we have our updated website or when we do the software, that everything is readable and all buttons are usable through the phone. And then my last comment was, I just really appreciated Kristen's last two lines of the paragraph about providing, the comment on disadvantaged communities and high satisfaction levels than having the software collected. I can't emphasize that enough. So thank you for an opportunity to make comments on the item. I would open it up to public comment at this time if the directors do not have, or do we do that? No, we didn't. Yeah, public comment.
We do have two requests, one from Alan Hirsch and then Joe Bolte.
All right. We'll start with Mr. Alan Hirsch. Alan.
Thank you very much, Kristen. It's a wonderful presentation. Wonderful, wonderful. I like, there's another thing I learned in business school. If you don't measure it, you don't manage it. And I'd like to then quote the Rabbi Lerner, who talked about the triple bottom line, which is basically economics, social justice and inequity, and distributional equity, and finally environmental. And I'm wondering, we've had good numbers on the environmental stuff, making some good steps on social justice stuff and customer service and quality there, but we should also be tracking in terms of what's the carbon footprint of each one of these rides and how do we reduce that, and how does that compare with rides of the of the fixed routes sort of things. We might be surprised, we might learn some things. We also should optimize, and that because certainly climate is one of the critical things we need to measure by. But thank you. This is a great step. We're learning how to do this thing. I think Kristen has really moved us forward dramatically.
Thank you so much for your comments, Alan. I appreciate them. The board will hear Joe Bolte.
Hi, thanks. I'm also delighted to see this measurement work taking place, and I especially like the 3-column layout in this description of data to be collected. It really helps set the context of what we're trying to do, how we're going to do it, and what exactly the metric is going to be. Regarding the goal of recording consistent wait times, I think it would be more helpful to record the 99th percentile wait times, or perhaps even the top 5 wait times rather than the standard deviation. It's more helpful to look at just what are the top cases and see, are they all coming from one source of error, or is it just a peak in demand something? So I think that would be helpful. And I'm encouraged by the questions about the reason for the high cost per ride on some of these micro transit things. That tells me we're paying a lot of attention to the data. These charts are speaking to me. I do agree there could be a little bit more context set about pre-COVID times versus post-COVID times, and averages for fixed route versus monthly time series for micro transit. But I think these charts are very close to being super helpful, and they raise the issue that another metric that may be helpful is downtime on micro transit. Fixed route, the buses are running whether empty or full, basically, as much as you can ride them, but there may be downtime in micro transit that would contribute to high costs. They're worth it in lots of cases because we need the vehicles to be ready there, but they may indicate where costs are going too high. Also, if substitute vehicles are used that are inferior because they're less accessible for some reason, that should be tracked as well. Thanks a lot.
I didn't want to cough. Thank you, Joe Bolte, for your comments. Are there any other public comments?
And not at this time, Madam Chair.
All right. Do the directors wish to have any clarifying questions or statements on the item?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yeah, the chair recognizes Mr. Saylor.
Thank you. I appreciated Alan's comment about the effect on the environment of varying alternatives that we might deploy in transit. And I would like to ask Kristen to consider ways of including measures associated with greenhouse gas emissions or vehicle miles traveled per rider or something. I think it, unfortunately, it might disadvantage this, but I think it would be important for us to understand how that works. And because some more people may be taking transit when they have this kind of an opportunity, I think Chris's earlier comments show that pretty well. I think it'd still be important for us to find a way to consider the environmental effects. So that's, I don't know what that would be, and I think it's going to take some thought to measure it in a fair and balanced way. But I do think it would be a good issue for us to understand.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. Yeah, I'm trying to puzzle in my head of do you count the if there's 2 riders on microbus, do you count it against a full what a full-size bus would their greenhouse gas would be? Or I mean, it gets kind of complicated, and I know Kristen's just a person to figure it out. So all right, if there aren't any other comments, I'd love to move to item number 9, which is the director's report, I believe. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to go over any questions or clarifications that the board may request on this, Madam Chair. Very briefly, I would just like to note that our free rides for COVID-19 vaccinations have resulted so far in approximately 592 free rides on the fixed route buses, and was 56 free rides on the paratransit buses. including microtransit if that's the mode that they wanted to get to. Relatives percentages are there. So ultimately, we do feel this has been a very large success for our district and our communities in helping spread the availability of meeting those appointments to get their COVID vaccinations. We do wish to continue this through June 30th to ensure that those who were able to get a ride to their first shot are able to get it to their second if necessary. So we appreciate the board's vision in approving this free ride service, and we'll report on it when the period free ride ends. And I don't anticipate it, but if necessary, staff may recommend that we continue it until the demand decreases on that. So, regarding the Causeway Connection service, there is an update through March 2021. The ridership, I wasn't able to get the ridership from our partner SAC Regional Transit for March, but today we have about 10,000 total rides on that. We are not currently proposing or considering significant revisions to the Causeway Connection in terms of levels of service. The next feasible opportunity to implement such changes would be as early as the fall of 2021. But again, as it stands currently, we don't have plans to do so. We are continuing our monthly conversations with SAC Regional Transit and the University of California, Davis, to make sure that we're all working together to meet the demand as we best can anticipate it. And we'll continue to report to our board any service level changes or actions to consider. The Route 215 service changes have been implemented as of April 1st. We have received some comments from the public, as we anticipated and as we typically do whenever we have service changes or reductions. And what we are doing is monitoring the performance of those changes, the capacity of those buses to ensure that they continue to be safe in this current pandemic environment. And we will continue to report on the ridership and those public comments to our board if staff feels that based on whatever the current conditions are, if we feel it's appropriate to modify the service further. As it stands right now, we do not feel that it would be, we don't anticipate needing to make such a change in the next couple of months. But again, our job as staff is to provide our board with the information about the current operating environment, and we work together to meet the needs of our customers and the communities. So the update on the monthly progress reports previously established, I did my best to update them. Effectively developing a 3-year budget. We are working on the fiscal year 2022 budget, and the 3-year budget will need that completed first before we can realistically provide a longer term vision of what this district may need in terms of financial information and data. I do intend to work with the board to complete that 3-year budget so that we have a longer look or a better look of how we intend to use some of the available funds, including those CARES dollars, CRR, SSA funds, and others that may materialize in the future. Regarding the transportation-related service changes and COVID-19, it's an ongoing project with the recently adopted YOLO Go service recommendations and strategies. We're going to work closely with the board to adhere to the phased implementation of some of those strategies and recommendations. And continue to provide updates. And then regarding a succession plan, again, that's in progress. Staff has provided to me a summary of their current activities and duties and tasks, and I'm in the process of compiling and formatting that information along with my suggestions and comments about long-term succession planning for the district to make sure that the district staff needs are met, as well as our board our district can continue to meet its vision, values, and priorities. So with that, happy to clarify any items in the director's report or answer any questions that the board may have. Oh, and I believe you're muted, Madam Chair.
I got it. Thank you. I have a dog in the room, sorry. Thank you, Acting Director. Do the directors have any questions on this item or comments? The chair recognizes Mr. Stollard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm trying to understand this chart that's between at the top of page 56, where it says SAC RT in blue and YOLO Bus in green. Is this chart relating to the update of the 215 service or
Apologies, Director Stoller. No, it's the continuation of item C. It's
Causeway.
it's just a causeway connection, correct? The total ridership above the bars there, and then the relative shares for each of the partners.
So do they run some of the buses and we run some of the buses? Is that the way this program is working?
Correct. It's currently, I believe the split as of April 1st is 14 of the 26 trips are operated by Yola Bus, and then the remainder by Sacramento Regional Transit.
When you say the remainder, so it's 14 by Yola Bus, which would mean 12 by SAC RT. And it seems like we're picking up the majority of the patrons on this service. I just wondered why that is.
And I might have had that flipped. So I know that previously the majority, we changed it slightly. Yeah, they were operating more of the trips. And because of the way that the existing demand on the causal connection exists in terms of, which community the majority of folks going from either Davis to Sacramento or Sacramento to Davis in the morning or AM or PM, the trips that were being operated by Sacramento Regional Transit had the historic, most of the historic demand on those trips. But we were ultimately, as far as reporting the success of the service, we're reporting it jointly. Yeah. So now that we've made some adjustments, we anticipate that the ridership share is going to increase slightly on Yola Bus and decrease slightly on Regional Transit, even if the overall ridership does not change.
Thank you. I had heard some of these facts in the past, but I had to kind of get used to this particular presentation. Thank you so much for explaining it.
That's a good question, Tom. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Is there any public comment on the director's report?
No requests at this time, Madam Chair.
All right. Well, then we will adjourn our regular meeting at 8:14, and we will have another public meeting. Our regular meeting will be May 10th, but the board will be moving to closed session. And I believe we do not think that there would be any items to report after the closed session meeting. So with that, we will adjourn the meeting, and thank you so much for your participation, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
I'll be ending the webinar.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Good job.
Now, can we stay on this one or do we have to move to another?
You have to move. There's another number for the.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll see if I can't find it.